I don't know what it is with Knowledge Zenith, but they've been killing it so far, and I'm pretty damn impressed. Now, disclaimer before we start review, the ZAS was sent in by a subscriber, so thanks to him for sending this unit. And with that, we don't have any affiliation to any store or any brand whatsoever, so this review will just be completely of my own honest opinion. Okay, so now first of all, this ZAS is an 8 driver per side IEM for around like $60 US, which with Knowledge Zenith we usually know that them, I mean, for like slapping around like as many drivers as they can in IEMs, but coming in at like $60 is still quite a bit intriguing, I would say. The last time they came like close to this, which was actually, you know, the last time that they put in like 8 drivers per side, which was the AS16, there was a bit more. That was like $80 something, and that was atrocious. It was horrible. It gave me nightmares. But this is not the case with the ZAS, right? And speaking of which, I'll just go straight into sound with this. I'll talk about the build quality and packaging later on, because there's not much of it and I'm going to be complaining most of the time. But let's just start off with talking about the bass of the ZAS. Okay, so the ZAS has tons of sub bass, like a lot of sub bass, which mind you does extend pretty damn low, and overall the sub bass slam is pretty damn good. Now, the mid bass kick and punch is also fairly good, but it lacks a bit of like this snap. It feels a bit too rounded for my taste, and I would say in general it just feels a bit less defined. Now, in terms of bass speed, this is more on the medium side, and in terms of control, it's pretty good, but it does bleed a little bit into the mid-range. Now, speaking about speed and control, the ZAS do fall a bit behind when it comes to faster songs such as like Dragon Force. This is more a problem in terms of like the sub bass region. The mid bass seems to be able to keep up pace most of the time, right? But when it comes to like lots of fast sub bass sections, the ZAS does fall quite a bit behind. And in terms of like the bass itself, depending on the songs that you're listening to, the bass can feel a bit disjointed sometimes. It doesn't really feel like it fits well with the IM, and it's incoherent, might I say, sometimes. Now, if we talk about the mid-range of these, right, this is kind of impressive to me, because Knowledge Zenith is not really known for the mid-range. They're just known for lots of bass and lots of treble, but the mid-range on these is alright. It's pretty okay, it's pretty good. Now, it's still slightly recessed compared to the bass and treble. This ZAS, I would say, is more of an L shape IEM overall, right? Just a slight hint of emphasis in the treble, a little bit, but not much. Not to the point where I would call it V shape. I would say it's borderline V shape. Okay, and they have pretty good mids, which again is not something that I would ever think I would say for Knowledge Zenith, right? At least until last year. And in general, the male vocals on these are pretty damn good. They have ample body. The upper mids might be a bit emphasized, but it does not come as being shouty or thin at all. Separation and detail in the mid-range is also pretty damn good, and it has some texture in the mid-range. I'm fairly impressed. Overall, I don't have a lot of bad things to say about the mid-range, if at all. So yeah, I would say they've done a pretty damn good job. Now, when we talk about the treble of the ZAS, which is usually the bane of the any Knowledge Zenith, the treble of the ZAS is actually overall not that much emphasized at all. There's like a slight lower treble elevation, and the upper treble is rolled off, which is like a very new concept to me when it comes to Knowledge Zeniths, because Knowledge Zeniths are normally like, oh, let's just crank up the treble to 11 or 12 or 13, let's just kill everyone's ears. But this is not the case with the ZAS, and I don't know what brought this change of mind, or maybe one of the drivers is broken, like, I don't know. I hope this is the tuning that they are actually intending, and I don't see any channel balance issues, so I assume that this is indeed what they're going for. And if they did, I would say this is a step into the right direction, right? Although the treble region still requires, I would say, some work to do, because albeit the lower treble being elevated, sibilance region is actually a bit too soft compared to what they usually do and what I would consider as neutral, and the upper treble just starts it just rolls off quite early. Like after 10k, it just already starts rolling off. There's barely any air and such, and just songs in general sound quite a bit muted. Not only that, the treble does become quite a bit of mush when you start to listen to very fast music, such as, again, Dragon Force. But anything else that's not too fast, it can handle no problem. Cymbals also aren't too splashy. There's a slight amount of splash in here, and I would prefer that to be, or I would like them to be slightly improved. Right? And if they nail that, I would say they would have a banger. Right now, talking about the soundstage and imaging of these, the soundstage on these is not that wide. Like if this were my head, the soundstage of the Canonical Zenith ZAS is about like half of my head. It's not too wide. Depth also isn't that good. I was only able to get like depth up to like maximum half of my head, right? So it's not that great in terms of soundstage. Imaging also felt a bit vague to me. I was only able to get like 55-ish degrees of accuracy at best. 50 something degrees. It's not the best, but I can tolerate it. It's not terrible by any means, and it doesn't blob the soundstage or the imaging into certain sections. It still feels quite round in general. So yeah, it's pretty damn good. Now before we get to comparisons, I'd like to just gloss over some problems I have with the Canonical Zenith ZAS in terms of build quality and packaging. Okay, packaging wise, it's the general this Canonical Zenith packaging. There's not much you get. You get like this small plaque which you can pull out, and I suppose I don't know what you would require this for. Maybe you can put it on your desk and just announce yourself as a proud Canonical Zenith owner. It does fall off quite easy. I genuinely don't know what this is for and why you can pull this out, but you can. Okay. Now, you don't get much in here. I actually didn't get the full set of ear tips. I only got like the medium-sized ear tips, which by the way are terrible. Don't use the ear tips that come with the Canonical Zenith ZAS, because they just do something which I don't get it. They're too soft. I seem to have misplaced them somewhere, and I'm not able to find them right now. Wait a second. Right, so you're supposed to be getting like 4 pairs of ear tips if I reckon correctly, but for some reason I only got like 3.5. And these new ear tips that they have, I get it, they're trying to get away from having ear tips that were way too hard like they did in their previous Canonical Zenith Starline ear tips, but this is too soft. Something in the middle of this would be great, because these are just too soft and you can't get a proper seal with them. Right, they're even softer than the orthophones. Not necessarily softer. They're just too thin. I would say they don't hold their own structure that well. The orthophones still do, but they're still quite a bit softer. Right, so the orthophones here, they have quite a bit more substance to them compared to these. Right, they maintain their shape, so you are able to get a better seal. These are the orthophones. These are the Canonical Zenith ear tips. Yeah, these just fold away, and you just can't get a proper seal with them. So I actually used the Hyperman RE400 ear tips, the double flange ear tips, and this seems to have given me the best amount of like isolation and just seal in general. So this worked the best for me. And another thing is, which I'm gonna complain about, is that in terms of build quality, The Knowledge Zenith ZAS has this weird nozzle in them, which for some reason doesn't really fit any of my like standard ear tips. This only really works with like the Knowledge Zenith ear tips, but they're terrible, right? And they only fit like the ear tips that come with like the RE400s, stuff that has notches in them, right? Because this isn't exactly a straight nozzle. So you might want to look out for that, because your ear tips might not fit, especially if they're slightly wider compared to, like, let's say the T400 standard of Complies, like 4 or 5 mils. I think 5 mils will not fit. I think they'll be too loose. 4 mils might fit, so keep that in mind. And also the ZAS, the biggest complaint I have actually is that the fact that the shell feels extremely cheap. It feels very fragile. It is quite tough, I would say, at least so far, from me like dropping in from like 10 centimeters of height. And because it's fairly light, I think even if you dropped it from like your ears to the ground, it might not crack. This is not mine, so I'm not gonna try that out. But they do feel cheap on your hands, and this, I don't know if this is the actual color, or if this in fact has just yellowed out. Right? I don't know if they came like this or not, but yeah. The cable seems to have improved, right, in general. This doesn't feel as cheap as like the cable that you will be getting with, like, let's say the ZSN Pros or the ETX and whatnot. This feels a bit better compared to the old Knowledge Zenith cable. It is still a straight jack, unfortunately, and it does have a mic in this variation. You can get like a non-mic version as well if you want to. Aside from that, in terms of fit, these are a bit of shallow fit IEM, right? So you might need like bigger sized ear tips compared to what you're used to. When I was using the stock ear tips, I couldn't really make them fit properly, and I had to like insert them like this at an angle. So the shape was odd, because this section which was supposed to rest on my ears just didn't. It has the same problem with like the DQ6s, but the DQ6s are smaller than this, so it wasn't much of a problem like these have. So yeah, keep that in mind. The fit on these can be a bit finicky. So yeah. Now to the last section of the review, we're gonna be talking about the comparison, right? At this price point, I don't really have any IEMs which I would like to compare them to, because it's, you know, it's like $60 something, right? You add a couple more bucks and you get something like the Moondrop Arias. Now that's what I'm going to be comparing them to, because that's the next level, I would suppose, right? And compared to the Arias, right, the Arias have less bass than the ZAS. Okay, the Aria also has better bass control, it has less bass bleed, and the mids are smoother on the Aria. But the Aria does have more upper mids, and it's way more forward and shoutier compared to the Knowledge Zenith ZAS. Again, not something I would have expected to say last year, but this year the Knowledge Zenith has surprised me. And the Aria also has more treble. Again, something that I did not expect I would be saying about the Knowledge Zenith. And the Aria also has slightly grainier treble. But the Aria's treble, I would say, is also better controlled compared to the ZAS, and in general has way better extension compared to the ZAS. So as an overall package, I would actually recommend the Aria, right? If you're looking for actually a darker IEM, you would probably take these. Again, not something I would ever say about the Knowledge Zenith, but I did with the ZAS. So this is why I'm pretty happy about these. So yeah, in terms of technical performance, the ZAS and the Aria are like in the same ballpark in terms of details, but I feel like the Aria has just generally better separation. So in terms of technical performance, you're not losing that much compared to the Arias from the ZAS, but as an overall package, I would still take the Arias. But I think the Knowledge Zenith ZAS are like a huge step forward in terms of overall capability, I would say. It's no longer just slapping around drivers I'm hoping it works, or maybe this is just a lucky guess, and it just worked out. So yeah. Thanks for watching. Like if you like this video, and see you guys next time.